We are live on Proline TV, the Ourlads Football Network, continuing our college football coverage of the 2025 upcoming season. Another preview, and this time we're talking SEC, actually once again today, because we just finished talking about the Texas Longhorns. Now, Auburn, the Auburn Tigers, and Bryan Matthews, who's been so great to talk to us over the years, is back once again. Combining now rivals on three. So I think everybody should be caught up by now regarding that. If not, well, get used to it. How's it going, Bryan?
It's going great. Yeah, new world. We got a big site now, six real pros with a lot of experience all working together at auburnsports.com, Rivals on three.
Hey, the more the better. Makes it
That's
a
right.
little bit more content happy and satisfied for the viewers. That's what they want, right? More content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cranking out a ton of content. Just got back from SEC Media Days yesterday
Oh,
up there to see Coach Freeze and the players and such. So, yeah, we've had a ton of stuff from that. And, of course, getting ready for fall practice to get underway here in about a couple more weeks.
and it's just about here. So we're all excited about that football season upon us. Speaking of media day as well as spring, it's those are a couple of nice little calendar marks in the off season. Was there like a storyline, something, a headline, something positive, negative that comes out of both spring and media days?
Well, I think there's a lot of things with Auburn, right? They've had four consecutive losing seasons. This is Hugh Freeze's third year, so there's a lot of pressure, I would say, for him and this team to step up and have a winning season. Win 8, 9, or more games, get to a bowl game. Sort of take that next step. So where the following year you feel like Auburn's maybe ready to compete for playoff spots. So I think that's definitely there. And of course, they've got a number of new pieces. They rebuilt their entire quarterback room from the bottom up. They brought in Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma. He's the most likely starter. They signed a 5-star and Deuce Knight, who was here. And then, this summer, they signed the transfer from Stanford, Ashton Daniels, and he's arrived this summer now. So 3 brand new quarterbacks, all going to compete this fall. Jackson Arnold, he was one of the guys brought to SEC Media Days, so you think he's
Huh.
at least likely to start the opener against Baylor.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, let's start first of all with recruiting. And because according to Rivals, Auburn has actually done a pretty good job this season, from what I could tell, with the ninth. I think they've rated Auburn the ninth best recruiting class for 2025.
Right.
With a couple of 5-stars and 15 4-stars, including quarterback Deuce Knight, who you just mentioned.
Yeah. Back-to-back top 10 classes. Hugh Freeze came in at the end of the 23 class and was able to flip some really important players like Keldrick Falk, who's an all-conference player 2 years ago, Kyan Lee, Connor Liu, who was also at SC Media Days. He'll be a 3-year starter at center. So recruiting has been going well until this year. That's changed a little bit with the 26 class, which will sign, we believe, in December, although I'm not sure that date's been set yet. There's been so many changes to college football lately. But that goes back to revenue sharing and how certain schools are interpreting the new rules passed down by the College Sports Commission, how deals are going to be improved through NIL Go. There's just so much new stuff. Auburn's being really conservative in their approach. They're just 66th in the country right now in their recruiting rankings. That obviously can change. You Freeze and the staff are very good at recruiting. We're just trying to get past August 1st. I feel like they are to sort of see where things stand. That's when you can make written offers to
Okay.
prospects. But this past class they signed, all but 4 enrolled in January. A number of these guys are going to play along with some of the transfers they got in. I'd say Jackson Arnold, quarterback. Um, Eric Singleton at wide receiver is going to be a star. He transferred from Georgia Tech. Expect big things out of him. And they also did some things to boost up the defensive line and linebacker in the portal and secondary. So, they feel like they've really improved this team from a depth standpoint, from a talent standpoint. We'll see if it shows up in the win column.
Yeah, do we with such a influx of top players this cycle, you would think several of them would have an opportunity to engage in competition and be a contributor. Who would you zero in on from what you've seen so far, as far as the true freshmen this season who might be able to, actually make a difference in 2025?
Whew, okay, the true freshman. Deuce Knight maybe, depending on what happens at quarterback with Jackson Arnold, right? You just never know sometimes. Jarrett Smith is a pass rusher, a defensive end, maybe the top player in Alabama, or one of the top 2 or 3 players in Alabama last year. Signed. He's got a chance. We'll see. Sometimes it's tougher for those freshmen to come in and play on the defensive line in year one. I think Anquan Fagans, who goes by New Boy, is an extremely talented safety. I think he's the guy that's going to play right away game one and could potentially push for a starting job here by mid-season. Maybe that's fair to say. So
Okay.
he's definitely one to watch. There's a couple of cornerbacks Auburn signed, Donovan Starr and Blake Woodby, who I think will be part of that playing rotation right away in the secondary. So those are guys to watch. And one guy I absolutely love is Jordan Crawford. He's a big old nose tackle, about 6 foot, 330, 6'1" ish, big boy. And when he showed up to winter workouts, some of the veterans were saying how incredible it was, how much weight he was already lifting, and how he was as strong as any of the seniors on the team. So this guy is, Auburn doesn't need him to start right away, but he's going to be in there playing early and being part of that rotation.
Okay, so that means keep an eye on defense, Fegans and Crawford, and on offense, Smith and Knight.
Yeah, and then Sam Arnold's another guy to keep an eye out for, a receiver.
Okay,
Maybe not as
Sam
highly
Turner.
recruited. Sam Turner, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay,
Sam Arnold. Arnold is the
yeah,
quarterback. Sam Turner is the freshman
yeah.
receiver. Not highly rated. I think he may have been a 3-star, but had a great spring practice. Is one of those guys that works his tail off, is a really good athlete. And he is a guy, you're probably not going to see him, catch 5 passes in game one, but maybe by midseason, he could become a really important part of that playing rotation too.
Okay. Now let's talk about those transfers,
Yes.
and those are players that you can see here on the
Right.
Arled's depth chart in orange. It's starting on offense. So let's talk about Arnold and Daniels, especially Arnold, because I remember hearing when he first came out, there was all excitement in Oklahoma about how
Yeah.
good this kid was going to be, and this happens all the time, as we know. You've been doing this long
Yep.
enough, where it's like half the time they deliver and half the time they don't. And
Yep.
so far, Arnold has not. But change of scenery, new system, new offense, all that kind of stuff. So, what do you think Hugh Freeze likes about him the most?
Well, here's the stat that blows me away about Jackson Arnold. He was sacked. He was not sacked, but Oklahoma gave up 50 sacks last season.
Wow.
I mean, I thought Auburn's offensive line was pretty poor last season. They gave up 27.
Okay.
So that tells you what he was dealing with last year. I think I don't know the exact numbers, but I think they had to start maybe you know more than 10 different offensive linemen. Had some receivers with injuries, so there was just a lot of issues with him in Oklahoma last year in that
Okay.
offense. And I think they're I don't know at what point in the season, but at some point in the season, I think they they changed offensive coordinators or fired their offensive coordinators. So a lot of other issues besides just Jackson Arnold. But I
Okay.
do think what happened caused him to lose some confidence too, which is natural for a first year starting the SEC going through that. So I think it's big for him to get here. He is surrounded by maybe the best group of Auburn receivers in my 25 years covering the team, and I don't say that I don't say things like that
Sure.
that often. I really mean it. Guys
Yep.
like Cam Coleman, um, I mentioned Eric Singleton, the transfer. Malcolm Simmons was terrific as a true freshman last year. They are just loaded with talent and depth
And
there.
Fields,
So,
another transfer, could be very
yep.
interesting. Yeah.
Horatio had a great spring too. Really, I think they're really impressed with him. So yes, a very, very talented and deep group there. And then Auburn took a big step, I think, looking at that depth chart at the transfer positions. Xavier Chaplin, the left tackle from Virginia Tech, is going to step in and be Auburn's starter right away.
Okay.
And then Mason Murphy at right tackle is probably going to be the starter right away too. And those are two areas that Auburn really has struggled in, not just last year, but probably for 4, 5, 6 years. Offensive tackle, both left and right. So those are really, really important additions there for the offense. And
Okay.
they went out and got another running back. They signed a couple of freshmen there. So that's an area that should, if one guy doesn't step up and becomes the bell cow, I think they can be pretty effective having a wide receiver by committee. I mean, a running back room by committee, excuse me.
Okay. And the on the defensive side, the guy that really stands out to me is I think, and this maybe shows you the depth of the Auburn secondary. If Strader is actually not really considered a starter, but we all know in this day and age, if you're like the 5th or 6th guy, you're going to play tons. So I'm sure he's going to play tons. That's Strader out of Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, he could. And then they brought in another cornerback in the summer, Rayshawn Pleasant, who they really, really like. And I would look out for him to make a big move once fall drills get underway here. They returned Jay Crawford, who started as a true freshman last year. They get Kyan Lee back at cornerback, this will be his 3rd year. He started a couple of games as a freshman, started all last year. So that's another guy they really like there. And then they've got a couple of freshmen I mentioned that they really like there at cornerback. So I think that's going to be a position of strength, what they have coming back and what they have coming in, especially in the transfer portal. And then, the safety position, that should be a real, real strength. They returned Caleb Harris, who started as a true freshman last year. You got Jacoby Matthews up there, a late addition from junior college, was a 5-star, a starter at Texas A&M, ran into some issues, classroom issues, maturity issues. But I think, having to go to junior college, not playing football for a year now or more, from what we've picked up from talking to him and other coaches is he's really matured a lot during that time. He's ready to come in and contribute right away. It'll be interesting because he's a guy that, played for G.J. Durkin, so he's going to know the defense well, right?
Okay.
But he's been out of football for a year, so how long is it going to take him to get back into football shape, right? He's a real physical guy, real athletic. So that'll be interesting to see. But he's certainly a guy you think at some point is going to be pushing for a starting job, if not winning a starting job.
And their punter also comes from the portal?
Yeah, Hudson Kaak. I don't know exactly. Kaak. I'm not exactly.
We don't know how to do that. Yeah, we'll figure that
out. From
Australia.
An incredible personality, life of the party type, and also really, really talented. So I think he'll step in as a starter right away. And Alex McPherson, had his health issues that really set Auburn back there. They had a freshman, Towns Magoo, who stepped in and had some real inconsistencies that hurt Auburn at times. But Alex had some surgery. He's back healthy, more or less, put on all that weight back. So they've got him back, and they also brought in a transfer, Connor Gibbs from Southern Miss, I believe, to help out there just in case. And of course, Towns Magoo is back too, so they've got some options there at the kicker either way.
Okay, yeah, because that cost them like a couple of games almost.
Probably 2 games. Yep, probably did.
Yeah,
yep.
That's not good. Okay, especially when your coach needs W's.
That's right.
That's it's not a position that you want to take lightly now. All right, so let's talk about breakout performers. Give me some holdovers of players that you believe are ready to take that next step.
Yeah, guys that were here last year and did a little bit, but maybe ready to step up. One guy that's really interesting to me is Keyron Crawford. Okay, he transferred to Auburn last year. He was a basketball player in high school. So, he was just sort of learning football at Arkansas State. He came to Auburn, backed up Jalen McLeod last year. I think he only recorded 1 tackle for loss, or maybe it was 1 sack. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but not very productive as a backup buck or outside linebacker as a pass rushing position. But he's had a great offseason. His coaches and teammates keep talking about him during workouts and during spring. So that's a guy just to watch. I'm with guys like that, I've got to see it to believe it, right? Because the production hasn't been there yet. But boy, oh boy, his teammates sure think he's ready to step up. So he is definitely one to watch. I feel like on the defensive front there, and Auburn definitely has to have somebody step up as a pass rusher with Jalen McLeod moving on to the NFL, getting a shot there. Another defensive lineman, a freshman last year, Morris Williams. He was a highly recruited kid. Auburn flipped him from Florida late in the process. Extremely talented. Could be the next Keldrick Falk type player. Needed to grow up a little bit, needed to toughen up a little bit, but has had a great winter workout, great spring practice. I think he's a guy that's going to be much more prominent in Auburn's defense and could be maybe the next star defensive line once Keldrick moves on. But you'll see a lot of Morris Williams, I feel like, this fall right away. So that's a couple of guys on defense.
Okay.
Offense, watch for Jeremiah Cobb, the running back. Coach Freeze has said on a couple occasions that he thinks he's going to have a breakout year here. The thing with Jeremiah is he's very athletic, very fast, really good receiver. So maybe he fits into this offense or fits into the offense that Freeze wants to have a little bit better than the other guys. We'll see. They got 4 or 5 running backs who end up being the guy. So he's definitely one to watch. And then they got a bunch of receivers, the 2 offensive tackles that are here. I can't really name an offensive lineman as a breakout player, right? They're just in there doing the grunt work.
Okay. And which one of these receivers do you think has the ability? Is it Coleman? Is he the one that really has maybe 1,000-yard ability this season?
I think he is number 1 on that list, definitely.
Okay.
Because he's a guy that has that ability to be a big play, stretch the field guy, but he's really, really dangerous in one-on-one situations and going up and winning that 50-50 ball, making plays in the end zone, making those one-handed catches, doing all that stuff. So he's a guy, if he's healthy and the offense is working, could potentially be a first team, second team, all SEC type player, maybe even better than that. We'll see. But I wouldn't rule out Eric Singleton, being the number 1 guy just because of his speed, just because of his big playability. A guy that can play inside in the slot or move outside if you need them to. And that room's just loaded. You got Malcolm Simmons back. I mentioned Sam Turner. You got Bryce Kane, a freshman who I think he may have redshirted last year. Perry Thompson, another 5-star caliber kid they signed a year ago. You mentioned Horatio Fields from Wake Forest, and a couple more freshmen, the Duke brothers. I mean, the Smith brothers, Duke and Eric Smith, also came in, both really terrific athletes. So that's an exciting room. That's the strength of Auburn's offense by far.
So really, you talked about Arnold having to deal with the poor offensive line play and maybe even some, coaching turnover when you're that young. That's not good. So because the way it looks now, even though they don't have a Jeremiah Hunter, we get that, but still there is you got the offensive line, you've got the receiving unit. This is all set up really for a quarterback to go out there and have a really solid season. And I think the running backs are again, this is Auburn. So even though they may not have a star this year, they'll be fine. So this has got some great potential offensively as long as Arnold comes through.
It really does. I mean, if this was a normal year, I would be telling you how I think this is going to be a really exciting offense, a breakout offense. It's just been 4 straight years of losing and bad offense. It's hard to, go on that limb and say this is the year it's going to turn around. One thing I also mentioned, of the 5 guys projected as stars in offensive line, I totaled it up the other day. They played in 170 games combined with 111 starts. You're not going to find many offensive lines around the country that have those type of numbers. And they got some talented guys there too. It's not just dudes that have been around a while. So that, you would think when you see that, they're going to be good. But I want to see it on the field, at Baylor, starting, August 29th, right before I'm ready to say, yes, absolutely, they're going to get it done.
Have you heard anything regarding whether or not one of these offensive linemen is above the other? Like, have you said, well, this is definitely the guy they're counting on to be like our leader in the next year or two?
Even though he's a transfer, Xavier Chaplin is the most important guy up there. He plays left tackle. It's a key position. It's a position that Auburn has struggled mightily with finding the right personnel to fit there that could play there. They've had to move Dylan Wade out there 2 years in a row. He's a guard. He's a really good guard. Maybe he could play on the next level as a guard, but he keeps having to play left tackle, and they really want to keep him at left guard. So
Okay.
I think Xavier Chaplin is one of the keys to Auburn's success this season, keeping him healthy, having him in there playing and starting and performing well. He did miss spring with a previous injury, but he is back and healthy and ready to go this summer.
Okay. By the way, I misspoke. It's Jarquez Hunter. I said Jeremiah, but I was looking
Jarquez,
at.
yep.
Yeah, but Jarquez, really, wow. And he goes through a really good situation with the Rams too.
Yeah.
So, it seems like that's the body type that they really like there, because now they've got Corum and of course Williams the holdover. So that could be a really nice backfield, great situation for Hunter. Okay, so offensively, we pretty much have the formula here now. Really strong veteran offensive line, but they got to go out and prove it. But if they do, it's there. Dynamic receiving options, young quarterback that could possibly step up. And if he does, if he steps up and proves that he's every bit as good as everybody thought he is, this offense has an opportunity to be very good this year. So now it's interesting because the defense has been carrying this team for several seasons. And last year it was the front seven. This year it looks like the secondary is going to be maybe the strength of the defense. But how good? And you mentioned, of course, Falk there. Is it? Do you think that there's worry that there's a big drop off as far as the front seven, or is there enough talent in that front seven, including Falk, that if the offense comes through, that this defense will be good enough, if not very good, because they were really excellent last year, but if they could be good enough, if not very good, that Auburn can have a really good season?
Well, I guess if the reason I would be confident in the defense is it's year 2 under DJ Durkin. And I think DJ Durkin is a really talented defensive coordinator. And my experience covering football, for 25 years is you get year 2 under a defensive coordinator like Durkin, the defense gets better. But there are some key players that they have to replace, especially at linebacker. Yeah. But I think starting up front, Keldrick Falk, first round draft pick, most likely next spring. Malik Blockton started as a defensive tackle last year. So, you feel like as a true freshman, so you feel like if he can step up, he's going to be a good player for you. Bobby Jamison Travis Quintrell, a guy his playing time has increased every single year coming out of junior college. He's a senior this year, experienced guy. And they went out and signed, I think it was 4 total defensive linemen in the portal just to give them depth. Yeah. They like the freshmen they brought in there a lot, talent-wise. They just don't want to force them to have to play too many snaps as true freshmen because they know, it's tough for true freshmen. And you also got a guy like Zeke Walker back who can play defensive end or defensive tackle. 6'4", close to 300 pounds, just an experienced guy, like a 5th or 6th year guy there. So they have some numbers, some depth. They're going to rotate a bunch of guys. So I think they're fine there. The linebacker position is a little bit shaky, as far as proven guys. You lost 3 big guys from last year. You got Robert Woodyard coming back. He's a junior, but he hasn't played or started much at all.
Okay.
So they're counting on him to, step forward and be that starter at the Mike position. And then we'll just see what some other guys can do. They love a freshman, Elijah Melendez. They brought in Xavier Atkins, kind of an outside guy, a playmaker from LSU. They brought in Caleb Wheatland from Maryland, I believe, another solid, smart guy who just makes a lot of good plays. So we'll see how those linebackers come around, but that's only the question I have on defense really is that position.
Has Auburn, like every program has an identity, even through coaching changes. There's just some sort of thing that you recognize out of a specific program. Lately, not just the last couple of years, but for a while now, it's for Auburn, it's been their defense. Yeah. Has that always been the case?
Most of the time, I went to Auburn in the '80s with Pat Dye. Right, I was a student then, and that their identity was absolutely defense. Put a bunch of dudes in the NFL on those teams, but I do feel that way. I feel like Auburn has gotten away from that identity a little bit in the last 4 or 5 years, just with the losing. Right, to me, their identity was being one of the toughest places in the country to play at Jordan-Hare Stadium at night, or when big teams come in. That just hasn't happened enough, right?
Yeah.
If you hear, I know Kirby Smart was asked about it, I think, at SEC Media Days this year. One of the coaches was asked about the toughest place to play, and he mentioned Jordan-Hare Stadium. So, coaches know that this is a really, really tough place to go. Maybe it wasn't Kirby, maybe it was another coach this year. I can't remember exactly who it was, but the history is there, right? They know it,
Yeah.
but the teams just have not been good enough to take advantage of that atmosphere that they have at Jordan-Hare. And if they don't start taking advantage of it soon, that atmosphere is going to disappear, right? So, they need to start winning some games, and they need to start winning some games against Alabama and Georgia and some of these big teams they play that they used
That's
to beat
true.
at home.
Yes. Enough of the close losses.
Yeah.
You need to win,
Yes.
and do it maybe even more than once, and then you got something going. Because overall, again, it just looks like they are, and this has been the case. They're a quarterback away from being respectable, a quarterback away from maybe being a sleeper. Or a quarterback away from turning things around and being really relevant, and maybe being a SEC contender. And now they've got a kid that has that talent. Matter of fact, you talked about the room as we started, and man, just some of those quarterback rooms the last few years, it was like, this is Auburn. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
How can an SEC team like Auburn have a quarterback room like this?
Yeah.
And so now it looks like, even though it's not dynamic yet, but on paper it's a lot better. And so there's hope, especially of course with Arnold. And is that what the fans are thinking as well? Or have they been let down too often that it's like you just said, well, let's just wait until the games start before I even get a little bit excited.
There's always hope in the preseason, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a tough 4 years for Auburn folks. They're just not used to this, right? It's been tough.
Yeah.
But I would say, if I was looking at Auburn, from not being an Auburn beat writer, right? I would call Auburn a wild card team this year.
Sure.
Because it could all come together and they could make a run. That is something that you could see happen. But if you look at their opening schedule, they could go to Baylor and lose, because Baylor's a really good team with an explosive offense. Their first two SEC games, at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, they could lose those games. Then Georgia comes in, they could lose that. They could start out 2-4 and everything just completely blow up in their face. So this is a team that you just don't know what's going to happen. It absolutely is a wild card team in the season.
Yeah, their over under for wins is 7.5, even though the 7.5 is over is -160. So it's more like 8. And that would mean if they hit the 8 mark, it's 8-4, which I'm sure Baylor fans take that, I guess, after what they've been through lately. But I know they want more. And then you take a look at the schedule, as you said. So the Baylor one, absolute huge one. They're a 2.5-point favorite on the road. And there are some people who believe Baylor might end up as the best team in the Big 12.
Right. And if you're the best team in the Big 12, you're in the playoffs. So that's what they're going into this season thinking. And, Auburn wants to step up, and now this is a true road game. This is not played in Dallas or Atlanta or wherever. This is going to be at McLean Stadium in Waco, Texas. It's not going to be easy for Auburn just to walk in there and win a game like that. So this is a really tough. Now the backside of the schedule is really favorable to Auburn, sure, but starting 2-4, it may be too much to overcome. I don't know if they can overcome something like that. We'll see. But the backside of it, you got a bunch of home games, you got winnable away games, you got Alabama Iron Bowl at Jordan-Hare Stadium. So Auburn could possibly go 5-1 or 6-0 on the backside of that schedule, realistically.
So
2-4, buddy. You just got to find a way to win 3 or 4 games in the first half, and then hit that back half and really hit your stride, and maybe you get to 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, that's why the Baylor game would be that important. Yes, and the thing is, too, is Baylor, even though it's not a conference game, but Baylor actually could afford to lose more than Auburn, because we're talking SEC versus Big 12. And I just think the Big 12 is going to have another one of those years. I don't think anything's going to change. It's going to be another one of those years like last year where anything can happen.
Yeah.
Whoever is predicted 12th can win. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the Big 12.
No doubt.
So I think Baylor could afford a loss and be just fine. But yeah, Auburn. And are you surprised they're the 2.5-point favorite?
A little bit. But I think that's a bonus for Baylor, right? I mean,
it should
a team like Baylor is going to spend the whole offseason saying, we're going to get a chance to knock off an SEC team at home, game one, and we're the underdog. Yeah, I mean, just that's a tough place. Auburn has got to play really well to come out there with a W, and they should be happy whatever happens if they can come out there with a win. Any way they can get it done, get it done.
And here's that really tough 3-game stretch: Oklahoma, Texas A&M, back-to-back weeks on the road. Yep. And then the week off before they take on Georgia, and at least they get Georgia at home. How has that rivalry been with Georgia lately regarding, have they been close? Has Georgia really just handled them pretty easily over the years? Because it seems to me that, and maybe not a surprise because Alabama-Auburn is just a different animal, that those games have actually been a lot more tighter than the Georgia games. But how have they been?
Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but up until about 15 years ago, it was a dead even series. In fact, the points, I can remember, every time I would cover an Auburn Georgia game, there'd be, the notes before the game, the points would be almost even over, 100 years. It'd be 1,020 points to 1,000 and, 25 points or something crazy like that. But the past 15 or so years, I feel like, Georgia's won, I don't know, 11-4, 12-3. I mean, I think they've dominated this series. Maybe I'm stretching a little bit. Maybe it's not that long, but it's been rough, really rough. Auburn's been better against Alabama than they have against Georgia. And this is a night game at Jordan-Hare Stadium with a week off to prepare.
Yep.
So, this is a game Auburn needs to play well in and be competitive, and they have not been very competitive against Georgia here lately at all.
Yeah, matter of fact, I mean, we know Oklahoma on the road is no gimme, and you would think at this point that they would be the dog, but Oklahoma has yet to prove to anybody either that they're different team. So,
and Jackson Arnold opening SEC game back at his old school too. So,
yeah,
just don't know what to expect. Yep.
Yeah, it could be good. Could be bad. It's one of those things that you don't know until the game's over, and then you have the storyline. Well, you see. And the Texas A&M game is going to be equally, even more tougher than I think than the Oklahoma game, because they're going to have a really good team this year. Another quarterback with a little bit more experience. But like you said, after that, then with Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vandy, these are all games that if they have turned the corner, they actually should win. If they have turned the corner, truly.
Right. That now, if they play like they have the last few years, they're going to lose 1, 2, or 3 games.
At least, yes.
If they've taken a step or two forward this season, those are all winnable games going into the finale against Alabama at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Even when Auburn's been bad with Alabama, those games have been close at Jordan-Hare at least. So we'll see.
I'd say if Auburn beats Baylor in that opener, they will definitely go over 7.5. For a variety of reasons.
Oh, I agree. It's a big game. It really is. Yep.
I'm not saying if they lose that they still can't get over 7.5. And I don't know when you're going to make your final prediction on the season, but what does your gut tell you at this early stage of whether or not you think Auburn is going to be a 8-win team at the least?
Man,
only 4 losses.
I haven't even done this yet. I'm going to be really conservative and say 7-5.
7-5.
Just break the losing streak. I do think they can be better than that. I do think they can win 8 or maybe 9 games, right? I absolutely believe that, but I'm not going to predict that. I've seen too much losing here lately. I got to, I'm Missouri on the whole thing. So give me 7-5. If they're better than that, they can throw eggs at me or whatever. I don't care,
No, I hear you. And that's why the Baylor game is so important, because you got to get that confidence going right off the bat.
Yep.
And we know how important that is. But I think you hit it on the head, them being a wild card, truly. And that's why when we were going over the offense, I was saying that if it's all up to Arnold, and if Arnold delivers, then the offense is going to be there. The defense is still going to be solid. And I think this is going to be a team that people want to keep an eye on as a potential sleeper in the SEC. We know that there's a big difference between being a team that's trying to just get back over 500 and be a spoiler, as opposed to competing for an SEC championship, which they've done in the past. But we're probably not at that level yet, but you never know. I think more than anything, once again, I think it's up to the quarterback situation. That'll determine whether or not they can be that type of a team. So overall, though, is the fan base optimistic, or are they kind of just waiting and seeing?
I think there's a range, but I think there are more wait and sees than you normally would have for a normal Auburn football season, at least in July, right?
And Gus Malzahn, are the fans okay with him, or are they a little bit uneasy?
Hugh Freeze, yeah.
Hugh Freeze. I always get those two mixed up.
Gus is offensive coordinator at Florida State, which will be really interesting, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I think they want you to win, right? I think there's a little bit of frustration, a little bit of questioning there. They like how he's rebuilt the program through recruiting. The roster is clearly better than it was with what Harsin left him, but still need to see that success on the field. They want to see that offense that they thought they were getting with Hugh Freeze, that explosive, big play offense that we haven't seen yet at Auburn.
Yeah. All right. Great job as always, Bryan. I hope we get the opportunity to talk during the season, because if we do, then that means that Auburn is going to have a pretty decent season, because we'll have some good games to talk about.
There you go. That'd be terrific. Love to do it.
Thanks, Bryan. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Take care. All right. That's Bryan Matthews joining us here once again from Rivals and the On3 Network. And so, I just have to laugh at myself because those two guys, I don't know why. There are certain sports and certain players or coaches that I just have in my head, and I think it's like the same guy almost because of the SEC and the transferring to. I mean, the moving from one school to another lower level school and have success there, and to come back. And but I like this Auburn team. I do. I think this Auburn team has got a really good chance of being, as Bryan said, an actual wild card. I'm not talking about a national championship. I can't go there. It's like last year when I liked Texas A&M. That was more for, I think that if they would have been able to receive that quarterback play that they didn't, then A&M, I think, would have been a true national championship contender. So I can't go that far with Auburn, but I will say that I'm willing to give them some time early in the season. If they win that Baylor game, especially, and then maybe even after that, Oklahoma. If you do that, then you have me at full attention as not somebody who believes that they're just going to have a better year, but somebody that, you know what, maybe this is a team that can do some really special things. So look, SEC, you've got SEC caliber players for the most part. You should. And he does. He's done a fantastic job in recruiting. We didn't go over the whole recruiting deal, which is not, as you said in the open, which is not going really well for 2026. But you want to check Bryan out. We got links in the description of how you can check him out, both for his content as well as his show. He's got a show on the auburnsports.com site. It's a weekly show called The Rundown Podcast. So we'll have a link in the description of that. You can see it right now, and also his content. And I'm sure Bryan's talking all about what's going on with the 2026 class. And even though they're ranked in the 60s at this point, it's early. So I probably, if I'm an Auburn fan, I probably wouldn't be too worried about that. I'm sure they'll get their players in there. But the bottom line is the recruiting has gone well. And the thing that's just held them back for several seasons now has been that quarterback spot. Matter of fact, let me see how far I can go back for the quarterback spot for Auburn. Let me put this in here. No, and we can go over it together. Let's see. Let me pop that up on the screen. All right. So this is over the last, 8, 9 years. So let's see. Let's go all the way back to 2016. Okay. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. That's not good. Imagine. Oh, here we go. And unfortunately, he didn't become the real Bo Nix at Auburn, as you all know. So this was, I think, was that the best of Bo Nix there? No, here it was. Okay. So, and look at these numbers. Nothing fantastic. Okay. Then he goes over to Auburn, actually Oregon. And then it wasn't very good after that at all. Robbie Ashford, who is, I forget where he's playing right now. I hope he, and you know what? Isn't he playing? I believe he's playing for an ACC team. Is that possible? I think he might be playing, but I know that's a guy who actually needs to be playing in the group of 5. And Peyton Thorne, man, I know you guys at Auburn, you fans, just had him pulling your hair out, both Ashford and Thorne. And look at that. That's for the last 3 years, Auburn's had to deal with Robbie Ashford and Peyton Thorne. I mean, just imagine that. I know you lived it. So that's why I believe that this is the year where Auburn can take that big step. More often than not, what you're going to see is they're going to have a much better year. They're going to upset a team or two. And then next year is going to be the year where everybody's going to point to Auburn as a sleeper SEC championship contender. That's if everything goes well this year. And I think at the highest point, because most people are going to look at this and just probably not even agree that it could even happen. But if they're willing to concede that they're going to be a lot better and this is going to be some sort of a breakthrough season, that's all they're going to concede. And I would agree with that because it's very rare that a team just comes out of nowhere, like Indiana last year in the Big Ten, that comes out of nowhere and they're a playoff team. But Auburn doesn't have the luxury of Indiana's schedule, so that's why that's not going to happen. I will say this, though, and I think you can see it for yourself with the SEC the last few years, with the transfer portal, the SEC's dominance is over. And now they are a very good conference, just like the Big Ten. The Big 12 and the ACC, they're behind. But the Big Ten and the ACC and the SEC, now the SEC is a little bit more deep. But at the top, especially at the very top, the Big Ten is there now, and it's as equal as it's been in a while. But the bottom line with the Auburn is, and the SEC, even though it's dropped a little bit, that is a good thing for teams like Auburn, for Texas A&M, for several others, Florida, schools, programs that feel like, you know what, if we have a big year, if we have a bounce back year and we surprise people, then how far could we go? Is it possible that those teams are ready because there's SEC talent, even though it's transfer portals, bringing in players from other conferences? I get that. But the majority is still SEC talent and SEC coaching, that it's possible that one of those teams can do things that nobody's expecting. And I think Auburn is definitely a team that you want to be putting them down on that list. I know we didn't talk a lot about Singleton. Bryan, put him up there as best he could in the limited time we had. But I am a huge Singleton fan. I know that this past year, the last couple of years, actually, with Georgia Tech, they're really building a nice program. And I really like Georgia Tech. And I think that Georgia Tech with King, I think he's an exciting quarterback. And I think they're going to be a very good sleeper team out of the ACC. I don't even know if you can call them a sleeper team anymore out of the ACC, but I think they've got the talent to be an ACC championship team this year. And that's the difference, because I think Auburn to me, with Georgia Tech and Auburn, they're kind of in the same light as teams that could be like middle of the pack, but because the ACC is weaker, Georgia Tech can compete for a championship in the ACC. Auburn just can't. You would realistically think so. Everybody knows Georgia is going to be as good as they're always going to be. And then, of course, you got Texas. I just spoke with Joe Cook before, and we just previewed Texas and Arch Manning and all that stuff. So we know how good Texas is going to be too. And so you got to get past Texas and Georgia. That's already, I mean, how are we going to do that? But then you got to take a look at the schedule, and the schedule comes into play always. And you take a look at Texas for one, they got a pretty tough schedule. I mean, their win-loss line is 9.5. Who would have thought that? Because Texas could end up as the number one team in the country when the season begins. Could be 1-2, Ohio State and Texas. And Auburn, and so Texas is in a situation where here we are, we could be, with 1 or 2 in the country to start the season, but we got to take on 1 or 2 on the road, and then we got to go and play all of our tough games on the road. So here's a Texas team that could end up with a 9-3 record when the regular season is over. They could still end up in the playoffs and still win the national championship. That's the day and age that we're in right now. But my point is, schedule-wise, that's the thing to look at. And that's why Auburn at least doesn't have like a murderous schedule. They've got a schedule where if they can take care of business early in winnable games early, Baylor, Oklahoma, split Texas A&M, Georgia. And that's the trick is right there, is if you want to have a really special season, you win early in those first games, including Oklahoma. Then you go, because I think if they're undefeated going into the Texas A&M game, I still think people will probably talk about, it's nice to see Hugh Freeze looks turning this team around, and it looks like things are headed in the right direction. But they're not going to give Auburn the credit yet, because they'll say, well, it's just Baylor, Big 12, and Oklahoma is Oklahoma, the way they've been playing the last few years. It'll be up to those 2 games. And then if they could somehow split those 2 games, the rest of the schedule opens up. And now you are a true SEC contender. But first things first, have to start off with those wins at Baylor and Oklahoma. You could do that, put yourself in a position to split those 2 games, and then we'll see what happens. Anyway, this is what we love to do at this time of year. But this is the reason why I want to have these interviews. There's a lot of reasons why I like to have these interviews, and this is definitely one of them, because we get to take a look. I know it's early still, but camp's starting in another couple of weeks. The fact is this is what you want to do. You want to find out from the horse's mouth, from excellent insiders like Bryan, what's going on with these teams, what's truly going on as far as, which are the players that we need to keep an eye on. And if all goes well, what could happen? And that's all I want to hear, because I'm going to probably look at, and we all are going to look at, if you do your homework right, you're going to look at about 10 or 15 teams during the course of your research interviews that you can say, if all goes well. Auburn is on that list. Okay, so, but there'll be another 11 to, who knows, maybe 18 other teams, I don't know, that I could put in that category. Then after that comes really, I think, the much harder work. And that's because now you've got the information from a lot of different people that you've interviewed and have done a great job setting you up for this. But then at that point, then you got to start doing your best to just come up with your experience, a lot of luck, some guesswork, and say, and hopefully you get fortunate that you're like, you know what? There's a few teams here that I like. This is my sleeper in the SEC, or maybe I've got 2, because nowadays you can't just have one because these conferences are so big. So these are my 2 sleepers in the SEC and so forth and so on. Maybe you have 2 sleepers out of the 4 power conferences, and you hope a few of them hit. That's it, not a few. Let's say if you had 8, 2 per conference, you hope 2 of them hit. Okay, so you don't even need 50% of them at that point to hit. If you can hit just a couple of them, then you're doing pretty well. Because again, we're not talking about 8 teams. We're talking about, I don't even know what the exact number of teams are in the Power 5, but whatever that number is, and let's say we've got 2 out of the 8, that means we've got 2 out of all of the Power 4 conferences, 2 teams that we picked that were sleepers that actually came through. And that I think is pretty good. So that's what we're going to try to do here. And I definitely want to know what you guys think regarding whether you think Auburn is a sleeper and in what fashion. Are they a sleeper to upset a couple of teams and win? What is the number again? 7.5. What do you think about 7.5? It's 7.5, 160, minus 160. Again, meaning that Vegas is this close to pushing it to 8. So they really feel Auburn's about 8. So, they think Auburn is about 8-4. So what do you think? Do you think Auburn is an 8-4 team, or do you think they're a 9-3 team? And is there any chance? I know with the utmost confidence, or not just confidence, but just I'm laying my heart out there, and I'm gonna say, hey, all the good vibes are here, and if all the good vibes turn into actual events, and we win games we're not supposed to, then what do you think? Do you think Auburn has that type of ability to be a contender in the SEC this season? I know most people are going to say no, and I understand that, but I think it is something that you never know. Could happen. I've seen a lot of other crazier things happen, like Arizona State last year in the Big 12, when not only they predicted 12th to win the Big 12, but they actually not only won it, but they should have beaten Texas from the SEC. Should have beaten Texas. If you remember that game, when they came back, what was it? They had that 4th and 13 play, and they let Texas score the touchdown to go to another overtime session. I don't even want to talk about that because that frustrated me to no end, that defensive coordinator called a blitz on a 4th and 13 in that spot. But that's how close Arizona State was. So I think we have to be more open-minded towards not just sleepers, just overall long shots. Look at Ohio State. Nobody really thought, most people did not think Ohio State was going to be able to rebound from the Michigan loss. People were already, hey, Ryan Day is going to get fired. They're not going to have anything to, they're not going to be able to get up in a week and play an SEC team. Being at home is going to be bad for them. It's going to be a mess. And what do? They just blew out Tennessee, and they went on to win the national championship. So everything that we're thinking about, the way that we've thought about where champions come from or sleepers come from, long shots come from, you have to have a different mindset to that nowadays because of the transfer portal. So you just do. You have to be more open-minded towards events and outcomes happening that normally wouldn't happen. And the difficult part, though, is trying to find out which of those teams are going to break through. But they're out there. I'm telling you, that's the new way I think of paying attention to college football from now on, including the playoffs. And we'll talk more about this all throughout the season. So, and we definitely hope you're with us here every step of the way, because not only are we going to be having all these types of interviews for both the NFL and college football, but once the season starts, and even before the season, because matter of fact, tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern, we're going to be previewing the Big Ten on the Playbook ATS podcast. So that's 1:00 Eastern on the Proline TV network, on the Proline TV channel for the Arledge Football Network. Actually, that's not an Arledge Football Network show, but that'll be right here on the Proline TV. We're doing the SEC next week on that show, 1:00 Thursday. We've already done the ACC and the Big 12. Then we turn our attention to the NFL. So we're going to be predicting, and look, we've got great handicappers. We've got legendary handicappers. So these guys on that particular show, every Thursday at 1:00, all the way through the season, you're going to find some excellent handicapping information. And then on other shows on the channel and on the Arledge Football Network, we are going to be talking about college football, NFL games with our picks and predictions and analysis. And then I get to ask Bryan to come on a show. And if, let's say they upset Baylor, Auburn, and they head to Oklahoma undefeated. Well, hopefully I'll be able to get Bryan on that week and talk about how things are going and what he thinks about the matchup with Oklahoma. So that's what we're going to be doing all season long here on the channel. So whether you're into handicapping, whether you're into fantasy sports, especially for football, of course, because this is the season, we're going to have it here on Proline TV, as well as, of course, on the Ourlads Football Network. So I hope you join us here. And if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, I know you probably want to tell me I'm just off my rocker by talking as optimistic as I have about Auburn. I know coming from an Auburn fan base right now that is pretty pessimistic. And I understand how that feels as a Jet fan, because most Jet fans are pessimistic, even though I try staying optimistic myself. But then you have that little realist that comes through. And so being a realist helps, because it doesn't, the heart kind of is protected when you're being real. So hopefully Auburn fans, I know how it feels. So hopefully the proof will be in the pudding when the team goes out there and plays Baylor to start the season. And again, I really do believe that Baylor game could be the type of game that could impact Auburn the entire season, because they need to just like any team that is going through troubles, especially with the same coach, even though he's only been there a short period of time doing this. But you need that game. You need that turnaround. You need that moment where everybody buys in. And it's like, you know what? This isn't going to be the same old. This is a different team. We believe in what we're doing here with this coach. This is our year, and we can see it happening on the field. And that's why I think that even if they lose to Baylor, they could still have a good season. But if they can beat Baylor, maybe they can have a special one. Okay, so I'm going to be back at 9:30 Eastern time to talk NFL. We're going to talk about the New York Giants live here on Proline TV. Ryan Dunleavy is going to join me. So training camp is right around the corner for the NFL. They start before camp starts for college. So if you're into the New York Giants, boy, what a tandem that would be, an Auburn Tigers fan and a New York Giant fan. I don't think there's many of those, but there's a couple of Auburn Tigers on the Giants, and maybe there is. Anyway, if you're into the Giants or just into NFL talk, we'll be doing that at 9:30 Eastern. Tomorrow, Big Ten talk at 1 o'clock. If you're into horse racing, we're going to have a little horse racing coverage tomorrow as well. We're also going to be talking college football Friday at 4 o'clock. Jim Feist and I are going to dive into several teams, and we're going to go over their win totals. And these are going to be teams that I've already interviewed. I just interviewed Joe Cook about Texas. So we're going to talk about Texas's win totals, Ohio State. We'll talk about that week 1 matchup and a few others. And I'm also going to take sound bites from the interviews I had with those specific teams and their schedule, their win totals, hear it from the horse's mouth as far as the analyst is concerned of that interview that I did. And then Jim and I will talk and come up with our own angle and what we think about those specific teams that we come up with for Friday's show. So that'll be on Friday. And also, if you're into NASCAR, we have our NASCAR coverage continuing on Saturday. We're going to be talking about qualifying and practice from Dover. We do a show every Tuesday that airs at 4 o'clock Eastern time. And there is a possibility that I might be doing a post-race show on Sunday. Been trying to put that together for a while now. Dover might not be the perfect place to do something like that because it tends to be a boring racetrack. But who knows? Maybe I'll even pop on before the race ends and maybe talk a little about the race as it's unfolding. So a lot happening here at Proline TV. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We appreciate all of that. We have a Patreon. You can check that out. We also have a YouTube membership, but that's only for horse racing at this point. But hey, if you're a horse racing fan, check that out because it's a big time of year in horse racing. Big race coming up on Saturday at Monmouth Park. So that'll wrap it up here for our Auburn Tigers football talk. Again, thanks to Bryan Matthews. I'm Greg DePalma, and we will see you next time.